Good morning, and thank you for inviting us to this to the poster session of this workshop. Today we will be presenting a paper based on research still in progress on essentially the experience of migrant workers in the gig economy of Turin. So, in particular, we'll be exploring the experience of migrant food delivery riders in Turin, which is a major Italian post-industrial city, and also one of the first Italian cities, and the first one in Southern Europe to see a large-scale protest of platform workers. In particular, we will be looking at how migrant labor experiences make sense of a process of neoliberal flexibilization, which are based on both the rollout of standard employment relations and also restrictive migration policies. All this against the backdrop of technological and organizational innovations based on extractive digital platforms and also legal expedients such as workers' misclassification, according to which those workforce platforms are not considered as employees, although they have to comply with algorithm management, but as independent contractors. And we will look at this experience through the lens of the concept of hyper-precarity, which Lewis and others defines as the condition emerging from the ongoing interplay of neoliberal labor markets and highly restrictive immigration regimes. And in so doing, we want to provide empirical evidence to both the way the public regulation of immigration and migrant labor impacts foreign workers' opportunities and challenges in the segmented labor market in those countries, which is conceptualized by Van Dorn and others, and also in general to the ongoing reflection on how the current pandemic and the policy response of it, mostly in the form of lockdowns, are actually exposing pre-existing vulnerabilities in urban and political economies. We think that this is a particularly timely topic here in Italy, and not only that warrant further media and also academic attention. Over the past year, there have been a few investigations in Italy over the hiring practices for delivery platforms, most notably ones launched by the Public Prosecutor's Office of Milan in 2020 against the hiring practices of Uber Eats, which is the food delivery platforms of the US-based ride-hailing giants Uber. So the Public Prosecutor's Office, the investigators actually wiretapped top executive of Uber Eats to figure out essentially how they were relying on other companies, on intermediaries, essentially to exploit the loopholes of the Italian immigration regime, immigration asylum system, to essentially exploit vulnerable workers, both asylum seekers and migrants in a condition of such socioeconomic vulnerability to accept starvation wages up to €3 per hour. And in the report released by the Public Prosecutor's Office, actually one of these top executives of Uber Eats Italy was reported by saying, "We have created a system for desperate people." Now, in this paper, we don't want absolutely to relieve Uber Eats from their responsibilities. We want to argue actually that they were not the only creators of this system of vulnerable to exploit vulnerable people. In fact, this system was co-created by a very restrictive and very confused immigration system, and also the hiring practices of the digital platforms and very increasingly deregulated labor markets in Italy. Now, our key arguments in this paper, argument that we'll support with empirical evidence is that essentially the interactions between shifting migration policies and loopholes in labor laws essentially exacerbate the vulnerability, create this the situation of desperation for many migrant workers, for which platform work is very often the only source of income. Now, when we talk about shifting migration policies, we refer to a situation which is particularly true for Italy. It's true that migration has become a very politicized issue all across Europe. In Italy, this is the case. This is particularly the case because Italy is the first country of arrival for many migrants and asylum seekers coming from North Africa. It's also a transition point towards other destinations in Europe, and also because the Italian political system is extremely fragmented. We had 12 governments over the past 20 years, and each government have changed more or less extensively the immigration laws or immigration procedures. And this has added uncertainty to a system which was already obscure, not just for many migrants, but also for legal practitioners and advocacy organizations. So increasing confusion essentially to what kind of documents need to be provided, what kind of contracts workers need to have in order to be able to renew their working permit or their living permit or to advance their asylum claim in Italy.
The conditions of migrant platform workers in Italy have been shaped by the interaction of policies that have reduced workers' protection and others that have narrowed migrants' path to legal status. These legal trajectories have unfolded in parallel over the past 20 years, hindering work opportunities for migrant workers. Their cumulative effect is particularly conspicuous in the gig economy, producing a situation of state-sanctioned exploitation. The law in 2003 and Job Acts in 2016 have made the labor market more flexible and reduced workers' protection. Bossi-Fini law in 2002 embodies a political change toward a more restrictive immigration policy, leading to the increment of irregular migrants in Italy. Over the last 30 years, there has been a gradual, thus constant, limitation in numbers of visas available under the quota system for migrants to arrive legally in Italy. In 2018, the Salvini's security decree has eliminated the humanitarian protection, therefore limiting the chances of gaining legal status for asylum seekers who do not stick to the categories of refugee and subsidiary protection. After 2 years, thousands of migrants who had a humanitarian permit turned into irregularity unless they could prove that they would be exposed to serious harms or health problems in their country of origin, or if they provided a job contract. Still, many difficulties arose from the fact that most contracts were short-term contracts, or their job was registered as occasional performances. In these cases, it was almost impossible to renew their permit as work permit. Research was conducted in Turin, which appears today as a liminal city due to the restless process of deindustrialization. In the 60s, Turin was the archetype of the 40s city, organized around the automobile firm of Fiat, which made it the epicenter of worker struggle. In 2016, Turin, after London, again was the theater of labor's conflict by hosting the first protest of food delivery riders. The case of the Turinese startup Pony Zero is exemplative of the commodification of the labor process. The startup collaborated with Just Eat, involving algorithmic and human management and leading to riders informal spaces of socialization and negotiation. But the reality was that Just Eat was using Pony Zero to test and improve the algorithm. Our research was conducted among migrant riders, and anecdotal evidence accounts that foreign workers' percentage is much higher than the 25% of the total workforce, asserted by the latest census of the food delivery sector in 2018. Engaging in platform work often offers a quick pathway to self-sufficiency, even though in the form of an unstable income and depressed wages for migrants who do not find a stable occupation, or those who have no legal documents. Lamine, who comes from Senegal, had been illegal for 10 years since they caught him with few marijuana grams. Since then, he has not been able to get a permit anymore and cannot find a formal job. Then, food delivery is one of the few jobs he can easily do by using his friend's account. Another example comes from Bilal, a Pakistan man. He started working in the food delivery sector after his permit was ripped up by German police. In 2018, he asked his cousin to use his Glovo account, giving back to him 20% of his earnings to pay taxes. After 1 year with Just Eat, Bilal was able to earn enough to open 2 restaurants. With platform despotism, we refer to the way food delivery platforms sometimes take arbitrary decisions affecting workers. Riders' everyday digital interaction with the platform challenges the partnership rhetoric of companies, revealing it as a mere branding instrument, part of a profit-driven end. For example, Lamine, the Senegalese man we met before, is always looking for working hours in the calendar. Sometimes he stays up until 1 in the morning. He's frustrated because his scores lowers or increases independently from the numbers of deliveries he does. So the platform seems to lack a logical mechanism to him. Secondly, platform despotism tries to hide behind the discourse of the impartiality of the algorithm. But as Ibson, a Senegalese writer, tells us, the working relationships is far from being symmetrical. He feels he's not free, as the platform states, because to get a high score and therefore more orders, you need to work as a slave. So, actually, you are not an autonomous worker. You never decide when to work.
In our research, we identified 3 levels of uncertainty that we believe characterize migrants' gig workers' lives, found in their hyper-precarious condition. So we can say migrants are facing an economic level of uncertainty, another one which is platform uncertainty, and a third one which is legal uncertainty. Plus a new one, which is a sort of overarching level, which is caused by the COVID-19 situation. So the economic uncertainty comes first of all from the structural feature of the business model of the platform, which is based on minimization of cost of labor, lowering salaries, and lack of labor protection. This structure aims to an overabundance of the workforce, causing a structural labor shortage. Besides, our interviews highlighted also external problems from platform work itself, apart from the nowadays infamous safety hazard that riders are facing every day, as like Bilal, a Pakistan rider we interviewed, told us, riders are also easy targets for bicycle theft. This is something that is faced by most of riders, Italians as well as migrants, and it is worsened by the fact that there is a lack of working safety guarantees and support from platform to riders. Therefore, riders perceive a constant risk of being victim of theft. This risk though is perceived as coming not only from the street but also from the inside the platform. And here is the platform level of uncertainty. The algorithmic dynamics in fact are not completely clear. There is an asymmetry of data owned by the platform and data given to the riders, and this goes against the partnership rhetoric that platforms claim in order to avoid subordinate contracts, which are of course more expensive for them. Several riders told us also that food delivery platforms often fail to give all the monies riders expect from them. Also, due to gamification dynamics, riders are always risking a rating drop, which prevent them to get enough gig. And the reason of these drops are not always clear to riders. A third level, which is specific of migrant living condition, is what we call legal uncertainty. The motivation that supports people's movement in national territory leads to their classification into different legal status. Those categories produces different level of precariousness by sketching different socioeconomic rights, future opportunities, and access to labor market. Legal uncertainty refers to migrants' experience of cost and risk of losing the residence permit, the right to renovate it, and the impossibility to exit from their position of irregularity. Another issues come from the fact that immigration norms in Italy are quite heterogeneous, changing from region to region, and creating a lot of confusion among either employees or employers about what a certain legal status provide in terms of access opportunities to labor market. So we claim that a critical point has to be identified at a crossroad between labor law and immigration law. Since platform work is not recognized as employed work, migrants cannot obtain a work permit. And ultimately there is the fourth level of uncertainty, which pass through all three of them. It is interesting to notice that even though it is important to highlight the deficiency of safety measures for workers during the pandemic, such was not the main concern of our interviewees. Most migrants riders were not afraid of being infected by COVID-19 during the working shift or worried because of the lack of security devices, while for the most of them the main concern was coming from the increasing number of people signing with the digital platform. Therefore, the uncertainty they perceive, rather than being related to health issues, it is an economical one.
So the policy implications of our study. We have seen that the gig economy and particularly food delivery platforms are increasingly under scrutiny. In courts, we have seen this happening not just in Italy, but also in Britain and in Holland, whereas in the Netherlands, where essentially the courts have acknowledged that food delivery platforms should recognize their workers as employees and not as independent contractors, even among investors, as we have seen with the recent failure in the IPO of Deliveroo in Britain. But there is really a need to consider platform labor as a multifaceted reality made by workers with different priorities and legal statuses. The workers who may appreciate flexibility and others who can rely only on platform work. So the point is that reclassifying platform workers as employees may well suit a large segment of workers, but not all of them, because this may expose migrant workers to possibly more uncertainty and precarity. Also because in Italy it's very unlikely that food delivery platforms will be able to hire regularly as employees all those working for them, and so they may possibly raise entry barriers for workers. And also there is a need of greater coordination between unions and migrants' rights organizations. This is something we haven't discussed in this paper, but is a topic we are exploring in research, and we argue that actually that there is a need to overcome these two silos between labor rights and migrant rights, and acknowledge the continuity between labor and migrant struggles. So thank you very much, and we'll look forward to continuing this conversation.